This is Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida and Governor Gavin Newsom of California. On November 30th, 2023, both governors participated in the Great Red versus Blue State debate, which aired on Fox News. Governor DeSantis, who is running for the Republican nomination for president in 2024, had one of the most successful legislative sessions in Florida's history. Tax cuts, infrastructure investments, protecting parents' rights in education, salary increases for teachers, enacting constitutional carry, anti-crime bills, and a 6-week abortion ban. Everything that DeSantis promised to get done during his campaign, he got done. All while running with a giant budget surplus. He is, hands down, the best governor in the United States. Governor Newsom, on the other hand, is overseeing a budget with a $31 billion plus deficit this year. The high corporate tax rate and a slew of anti-business policies are forcing businesses to leave the state, taking jobs and tax revenue along with them. And so many Californians have moved out of the state that they lost a House seat in Congress. And that brings us to the first topic of the debate: state-to-state migration flow over the last 2 years. Fox News showed graphics of population loss from several blue states and contrasted it with population gains of several red states. So looking at the raw numbers, over the last 2 years, over 450,000 people moved to Florida compared to 750,000 who left California. And Governor DeSantis was asked to explain this phenomenon.
You almost have to try to mess California up. And yeah, that's what Gavin Newsom has done since he's been governor. He's the first governor to ever lose population. They actually at one point ran out of U-Hauls in the state of California because so many people were leaving.
And that's essentially the point of this debate, to show the differences between good governance and piss-poor governance, which Gavin Newsom can't even defend in a real way.
Now, he's very good at spinning these tales. He's good at being slick and slippery. He'll tell a blizzard of lies to be able to try to mask the failures. But the reality is they have failed because of his leftist ideology. And the choice for America is this: what Biden and Harris and Newsom want to do is take the California model and do that nationally. In Florida, we showed that conservative principles work. This country must choose freedom over failure.
Again, best governor in the union. And DeSantis was 100% correct in predicting Newsom's debate strategy. Watch Newsom's response after being asked to explain why 750,000 people left California over a 2-year period.
I'm here to tell the truth about the Biden-Harris record and also compare and contrast Ron DeSantis' record and the Republican Party's record as a point of contrast that's as different as daylight and darkness. You want to bring us back to a pre-1960s world, America in reverse. You want to roll back hard-earned national rights on voting rights, on civil rights, on LGBTQ rights, on women's rights, not just access to abortion, but also access to contraception.
So to compare, DeSantis pointed to Newsom's policy failures, and Newsom went into full demonization mode by claiming that DeSantis is an evil racist who hates women.
But there's one thing, in closing, that we have in common, is neither of us will be the nominee for our party in 2024.
Governor, great opening statement, but it did not address the issue. Can you explain this migration out of California and going to red state, blue state?
Well, hold on. You mean the last 2 years, more Floridians going to California than Californians going to Florida?
No, I put up on the
by the way, that's going to be fun to fact check, so we'll just start right there.
Yes, let's start there. First of all, Governor Newsom is not addressing the question being asked. Why are so many people leaving California? And he can't address it because then he would have to talk about the reasons for it. Out of control housing costs, high taxes, high crime, etc. Instead, he made an absurd claim that more people from Florida are moving to California than vice versa. According to the United States Census Bureau, in 2022, over 50,000 people moved from California to Florida, and over 28,000 moved from Florida to California. So clearly Newsom was lying, right? Well, not according to PolitiFact, who jumped into the fray and claimed that Gavin Newsom's statement was mostly true. They pointed to a fact check from June 2023, where Gavin Newsom said in an interview that per capita, more Floridians moved to California than Californians moving to Florida. But in the debate, Newsom didn't use the per capita qualifier, which means that his statement is false. But PolitiFact, who just can't help but run damage control for Democrats, wrote, in 2022, 1.32 per 1,000 Floridians moved to California, and 1.31 per 1,000 Californians moved to Florida. In raw numbers, more Californians moved to Florida than the other way around, but this does not account for California's higher population. And even though population adjusting people moving state to state is an absolutely absurd concept, PolitiFact is gonna do it anyway. Despite the fact that, again, Newsom didn't say per capita.
You have yet to address the issue, but I asked you twice, you don't want to answer it, but the issue of why the migration out of red states, out of blue states.
We just established more Floridians coming to California in the last 2 years than the
overall, you had a net loss of 7.
It's a fact.
Asserted it.
And this was indicative of the entire debate night. Gavin Newsom was asked basic questions, but instead of answering, he either completely filibustered or offered what could be best described as alternative facts.
It's a fact.
No, it's not a fact.
It is a fact.
Moving on.
Now, during his campaign for president, Ron DeSantis really hasn't had a breakout viral moment until now.
So I was talking to a fella who had made the move from California to Florida, and he was telling me that Florida is much better governed, safer, better budget, lower taxes, all this stuff. And he was really happy with the quality of life. And then he paused and he said, by the way, I'm Gavin Newsom's father-in-law.
Only 8 minutes into the debate, and Ron DeSantis won by a knockout. I mean, how telling is it that the California governor's own father-in-law is going to choose the Sunshine State over the Golden State? Next, it was pointed out that nearly everything from sales tax, gas tax, and corporate income tax is higher than California than it is in Florida. Property taxes are slightly higher in Florida, but that's okay because unlike California, there's no state income tax in Florida.
Obviously, you support a different philosophy, which
Absolutely.
is higher taxes.
Yes. No, hold on. He has one of the most regressive tax rates in the United States of America. It's the number 3 most regressive state in America.
According to the Tax Foundation, in 2022, Florida had the nation's 11th lowest overall tax burden. California had the 5th highest. So what does Newsom mean by his claim that Florida has the 3rd most regressive tax rate if Florida doesn't have a state income tax? Newsom is pointing to a 2018 analysis from the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. According to their Inequality Index, Florida has the 3rd most unfair state and local tax system. So yeah, he's citing an income inequality analysis from a liberal think tank, an analysis which you can already figure out is bull. But let me explain the premise. Let's say you have 2 Floridians. Person A makes $30,000 a year, while person B makes $200,000 a year. And let's say, for the sake of simplicity, that they each bought $5,000 worth of items. Sales tax in Florida is 6%, which means that they each paid $300 in sales tax. ITEP's argument is that because person A paid a larger share of their income towards sales tax than person B did, that this somehow contributes to income inequality. Right. But regardless, even if this study meant anything, it's a study from 5 years ago when DeSantis and Newsom weren't governors. So who cares? And I should note that in the last year, there has been tax reform in Florida, including permanent tax exemptions for diapers, wipes, clothing for babies and toddlers, cribs, and strollers, which is pretty significant savings for a parent, regardless of their income bracket.
We talk about working people. They pay more in your state than the state of California charges for billionaires and millionaires. And it's just a value proposition.
True.
It's a fact.
No, it's not. Logically, a millionaire and billionaire in Florida will absolutely pay a higher dollar amount in sales tax, property tax, etc., because they will have more money to spend. And Gavin Newsom is such a sociopath that he will say anything to distract from the fact that he's running California into the ground.
Let's talk about your record on COVID. You passed an emergency declaration before the state of California did. You closed down your beaches, your bars, your restaurants.
False.
It's a fact.
This is incredibly misleading and mostly false. First of all, DeSantis declared a COVID emergency a whole 3 days before California did. So what the hell is Newsom's point? Second, the news media was doing everything in their power that they could to gin up outrage about the beaches staying open.
The threat of coronavirus isn't keeping people away from the sand. We found packed coastlines all the way up and down Pinellas County's beaches. Our photos of busy Clearwater Beach creating a firestorm online as the CDC preaches the importance of social distancing.
And that CDC guidance was literally changing by the day.
I would point out, though, guys, the images from Clearwater was from the Saturday. At that point, the CDC guidance was groups of 250 or more. Then on Sunday, they changed it to 50. And so we were working with locals to try to figure out, okay, what would make sense for us on a whole variety of things. And then the next day on Monday, they changed it to the 10. And so that's at that point, we're like, okay, well, we just need to steer clear of any large groups. So we did it for the beaches, and then we did it for the bars and closed the bars down.
So, did DeSantis close Florida's beaches?
Despite mounting pressure, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says he will not step in, leaving beach closures up to local officials.
So in Florida, DeSantis closed bars for 30 days. Most beaches were not closed, and those that were opened up after a couple of weeks, and restaurants were never closed. So for Gavin Newsom to lie and say that Florida was a lockdown state is peak irony, because Newsom was the one who declared a statewide shutdown and a mandatory stay-at-home order. He not only ordered bars closed, but also gyms, movie theaters, indoor dining, hair salons, theme parks, and museums. And they remained closed well into the next year. And my favorite Newsom COVID policy was when he closed down beaches and state parks in Orange County in the middle of a heat wave. And then a week later, those beaches were reopened, but only for active recreational use, which means that you could play volleyball, but you weren't allowed to stay in place while on the sand, because science. And when Fox News put up a graphic with statistics from the CDC showing that Florida's COVID death rate per 100,000 people was very similar to California's, Newsom went into alternative facts mode.
Per capita death rates in the state of Florida were 29%, 29% per capita higher. 29%.
That's not what the stats say right there.
Tens of thousands of people unnecessarily died.
Don't lie about it. He put the graphic up there. Don't lie about it.
Unnecessarily
you don't need to lie about it.
Because of your policies.
Just understand.
You're lying
you don't
about
need to
your
lie
record.
about it. No, it's not.
You were a lockdown governor.
No, it's
you
not.
locked down
one at a time. Gavin Newsom, finish your thought.
Beaches, bars, and restaurants. That's just a fact.
Says the governor who locked down his state longer than every state in the country. For example, Gavin Newsom ordered all public and private schools to be closed for the remainder of the 2020 year and beyond. And while Florida was the third fastest state to get kids back to school, California ranked 50th, which had very damaging effects.
California has one of the lowest literacy rates in the country. In the most recent NAEP exam, Florida came in number 3 for 4th grade reading. California was far, far behind.
Correct. According to the National Assessment for Educational Progress, Florida was ranked 3rd for 4th grade reading, while California came in 29th.
Well, when we opened the schools, we bucked all of those people June of 2020. He kept the schools closed for a long time, and that had devastating impacts. And why? What Gavin Newsom does in California is kowtow to the teachers union. Whatever they tell him to do, He does. He will never balk the teachers union. That's why the kids were locked out of school for so long. Joe Biden is in the pocket of the teachers union, and so is Kamala Harris. That's why they fought school openings when he came in there. When they had that in there.
It's Kamala
Biden came
Harris,
into office
Madam
and he
Vice
brought in the
President,
teacher union to be able to do all these different things to try to keep the schools closed.
Newsom couldn't defend the fact that he's in the pocket of the teachers unions, so he tried to make DeSantis look like a woman-hating racist. It's Kamala. Which of course is particularly amusing considering that resident Joe Biden can't even pronounce her name correctly.
But as Kamala said,
it's not Kamala.
And I also want to thank Kamala for her leadership.
How do you pronounce it?
Kamala.
Like a comma?
Like the punctuation.
La.
That's what I asked Kamala.
It's Kamala.
Kamala and me.
And by the way, you've been on a banning bench. 1,406 books have been banned just last year under Ron DeSantis' leadership.
Again, another lie. Gavin Newsom is getting this stat from PEN America, who claims that they recorded 1,406 book ban cases in Florida. But a ban case is a misnomer. While some books were removed from school libraries because of inappropriate content, the vast majority of these books were simply moved to more appropriate areas and or age restricted.
What's wrong with Toni Morrison's books?
It's not banned.
What's wrong? It's not true.
Not.
What's wrong with Amanda Gorman's?
It's not banned.
And the poetry?
Just because a book exists doesn't mean that it's age appropriate for all audiences, including Toni Morrison's book, The Bluest Eye, which is about a girl who is raped by her alcoholic father. You know, perfect content for a child. Newsom said Amanda Gorman's work was banned under DeSantis leadership. That's not totally accurate. After a review, a Miami-Dade school moved the book to the middle school section of the K-8 school library. Oh, PolitiFact, it's not mostly false, it is completely false, because moving a book to a more appropriate area of a school library is not banning it.
I actually have something that I brought that some parents have objected to. So this is a book that's in some of the schools in California. Florida, this is not consistent with our standards, called Gender Queer. Some of it's blacked out. You would not probably be able to put this on air. This is pornography, it's cartoons, it's aimed at children, and it's wrong. So this should not be in schools. When people like on the left say that somehow you're banning books by removing this from a young kid's classroom.
And he's exactly right. Garbage organizations like PEN America claim that the freedom to read is under assault. All because parents don't want their children to be exposed to books with content so graphic that I can't even put it on YouTube without having to blur it out.
I'd like to get you on the record. You've been unwilling to answer this question. Do you support any restrictions at all on abortion, especially in months 7, 8, and 9, past viability?
I'm going to answer that question, but let's talk about the issue of abortion. Let's talk about the issue of abortion.
You're going to answer it?
I'm going to answer that question.
No, he's not.
If a woman and her doctor, for any reason...
Not for any reason.
No.
I'm asking. Extremely rare.
Should there be...
I know where you guys are going, Sean. You're even uncomfortable with this whole issue. This is where you guys have to go to cover for the extreme anti-abortion agenda of Ron DeSantis.
Should there be...
who's hurt your party.
Would you support a ban on abortion in 7th, 8th, or 9th month if the mother's life is not in jeopardy?
Extreme exception.
Then if it's an extreme exception, if it's extremely rare, then why can't Democrats agree to late-term limits? The reason is because they are disgusting liars. And Gavin Newsom is such a poor leader that he can't even tell the truth about any of California's policies, including policies that contribute to California's insane gas prices, which at the time of the debate were $1.68 higher than prices in Florida. There are two reasons why gas in California is the most expensive in the country. A, it has the highest gas tax in the country, and B, because California forces the gas companies to reformulate gasoline in a way that is more expensive for them to produce. But Gavin Newsom has a better reason.
We've been ripped off by big oil. We continue to be ripped off by big oil.
Next on the agenda was homelessness, which in California is infamously high. And Governor DeSantis was asked about the disparity.
He put out a 10-year plan like 20 years ago. He was going to end homelessness. Then a few years later, he had another plan. And now he says he's going to do, and it's only gotten worse. In the last 10 years in California, the homeless has gone up 45%. It's gone down in Florida 45%.
And according to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, Governor DeSantis' stats are 100% correct. Furthermore, homelessness has risen 12.8% in California between 2019 and 2022.
I'm the first governor in California history to take this head on. We are investing unprecedented resources, more accountability. We've gotten 68,000 people off the streets, close to 6,000 encampments we've gotten off the streets.
Again, Gavin Newsom isn't addressing the question as to why homelessness is so high, because it's directly linked to his god-awful liberal policies.
This is a map of San Francisco. There's a lot of plots on that. You may be asking, what is that plotting? Well, this is an app where they plot the human feces that are found on the streets of San Francisco. And you see how almost the whole thing is covered, because that is what has happened in one of the previous greatest cities this country's ever had. Human feces is now a fact of life, except when a communist dictator comes to town. Then they cleaned up the streets.
And the fact that a poop app for San Francisco has to exist in the first place is everything. And it was such a kill shot that Newsom had no response for it. Well, other than his nervous laughing.
This is a map of San Francisco.
Next, Hannity asked Governor DeSantis, what is your favorite thing about California?
When I got orders as a Navy lieutenant to go to Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, I had not spent any real time in California in my life. Florida native, and I'm very proud of the state, but I got down there, and that Strand is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and then all up and down, just a tremendous coastline. I do believe California has more natural advantages than any state in the country, which is why when you have so many people leaving on net, you know, that's hard to do. Like, people don't want to leave there because it really is such a beautiful area. And I'm proud of the military installations that are there. I'm proud of what the Navy's been able to do in conjunction with the state. It was really important duty. It really helped forge me as an individual and as an American. And so I'll always have very, very fond memories of that nice Strand down there in Southern California.
And that's a really good answer, right? But then Hannity asked Gavin Newsom what his favorite thing was about Florida.
What do you love about Florida?
What I love about your question is the comedy in the question, meaning, you know what? We all want to be loved. We need to be loved. We all want to be protected, respected, and connected. I think there is a unity frame here. Okay. You said it well. I mean, Ron, I have no doubt Ron DeSantis loves this country. I love this country. It's not about red versus blue. It's red, white, and blue.
Did you see that? Gavin Newsom couldn't even say one nice thing about Florida. What an a-hole.
All right, here's the last question. Would you do this again? You want to stay?
Let's just do an extended hour. I'm happy to do it.
Okay. Then
this has been fun.
We'll take a break. They've agreed to stay. Well, that's, I guess, a debate on the fly. We'll continue on the other side and later have live post-debate coverage. We are in Alpharetta, Georgia, the great red state, blue state debate as we continue.
5 minutes later.
All right, welcome back to Hannity, our red state, blue state debate. By mutual agreement, both candidates had other commitments, and they realized afterwards they couldn't stay longer, but we appreciate them all being here tonight.
They both suddenly had somewhere to be at 10:45 p.m. Right.
New reporting revealing the chaos off screen that led to the surprise twist. 4 sources with the DeSantis campaign and 1 unaffiliated source on the ground telling NBC News Governor Newsom's wife walked onto the set to stop the debate from going longer, reportedly saying, "We're done."
And as if Gavin Newsom's night wasn't embarrassing enough, and even though he agreed to stay, his wife took it upon herself to end the debate. That's f***ing pathetic. And yet there are still people who actually think that he's the next best hope to beat the Republicans in 2028. Good luck, Democrats. Anyway, that's it for now. Follow me on X at Don't Walk Run, and while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. Special thanks to Poofy for her help with this week's script, and as always, thanks to you for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time, if there is next time.